Okay, and my understanding is somehow, miraculously, my slides have appeared up here. Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining me here this morning. And they told me that even though they know that my voice projects, they're going to turn up the volume here in just a moment here. Okay, there we go. So, thank you for joining me. If I were to ask you guys, how many would say that in your company, your performance management system is key in driving performance and it motivates your employees to be the best they can be? How many of you would raise your hand and say, absolutely? Okay, you guys, literally nobody is raising their hand. And that's kind of what I thought. In fact, a recent SHRM study said that 75% of HR executives felt that would rate their performance management process as a C or lower. And managers are even more critical about our process. The question is, what's wrong with the approaches that we use today, and what can we do about it? Now, imagine a world where managers and employees are energized by having performance conversations. It can happen. And in the next 18 minutes, I'm going to share with you the 6 factors impacting organizations today that indicate how organizations have changed over the past decade and why our traditional processes no longer serve us very well. I'll also be sharing with you the 4 most influential bodies of research or innovations that are happening in performance management that are helping organizations develop more contemporary approaches more relevant for a 21st century organization. And then I'm going to bring that all together to share with you some emerging trends and the companies that are demonstrating some of this today. So, there are many factors that are reshaping organizations today. And I was told this would have a little dot on it, and it doesn't. These first 3 factors really refer around the business environment. Growth is coming back to organizations as the economy continues its recovery. And organizations are constantly having to look forward and anticipate change based on technological innovation and business model disruption. Globalization has resulted in a great deal of growth in emerging markets, not in the United States. And this has resulted in the fact that many employees are working in globally dispersed teams, and sometimes your manager may be residing in a different country. So that presents a challenge. Increased competition means that organizations constantly have to innovate, and access to the right talent is the greatest inhibitor to growth. In fact, as Hank pointed out in his opening session, a recent study by the Conference Executive Board said that the #1 challenge faced by CEOs today is human capital, followed closely by innovation. The next 3 factors up here really have more to do with the work and the workforce. Hello. Given the pace of change today, organizations need to constantly adapt and reprioritize what types of things that they're working on. So the goals that we set at the beginning of the year are often shifting and changing based on changing business needs. More and more today, people are working on teams. In fact, many organizations have moved to matrix work structures, making collaboration across boundaries more important than ever before. And last but not least, we have the workforce. Not only are employees dispersed geographically, but the type of worker that we have in organizations today is fundamentally different from when performance management was first invented. Performance management was invented in the industrial era. Today's knowledge workers are motivated by an internal sense of fulfillment, by doing interesting work, and by developing their own expertise. And then we have the millennials, who are constantly searching for more feedback and coaching so that they can have a greater impact. So what are the implications of these organization dynamics for performance management? Let me share a few with you today, and I'm going to start with goal setting. Our typical process of setting goals annually simply is out of pace with the needs of a business today. And setting goals individually with our employees may not really necessarily be appropriate when employees are collaborating on goals together. Managers have typically been the sole source of feedback for an employee. And in today's work environment, where people are geographically dispersed, the manager may not be co-located with their employees, so they may not be the best source of input. Also, in very technical jobs, it may be that the peers have better insight into the skills and abilities of their coworkers than their managers sometimes. So maybe there are other sources of input that we should be considering. In matrixed work structures, employees have two managers. And our traditional processes have never dealt well with inputs from multiple managers. Think about the situations, you guys have all experienced this, where you have more than one manager over a year, right? We're restructuring, we're changing, our manager leaves, we get a new manager. And how do we deal with the input from multiple people in that situation? And how often is it that a new manager is left with the responsibility of providing a review on an employee they don't know very well? So we need to invite more sources of feedback. The process of providing feedback annually or semi-annually will not motivate and retain top performers. And bottling up feedback for an end-of-the-year process means a lot of information gets lost along the way. So we really need to move from periodic feedback to ongoing coaching for performance. And lastly, I come to language and labeling. Today's knowledge workers do not want their performance to be managed by anybody. It is not a good term, okay? So we just have to think about the term performance management and what that says to our employees. And then the process of labeling people through the evaluation process means that a large number of people who aren't at the highest ratings may be disenfranchised or disengaged by the actual rating that they get. So we need to think about that labeling and what that means for employees. So let me now move on to the four most influential pieces of research or innovation that are impacting performance management today. And I'm going to start with goal setting theory, which of course is absolutely nothing new. But it is some of the most consistent, persuasive pieces of research that we have out there about influencing performance. And what we know is this: setting specific, difficult goals motivates performance more than setting no goals or setting do your best goals. For motivation to occur, employees need to personally commit to the goals that they are trying to achieve. And they need to receive ongoing feedback on progress against that goal for motivation to occur. So let me pause there. This is where the whole process breaks down. We do not provide feedback frequently enough for goals to be motivating. And that's where the process we have breaks down. Now, let me point out here that nowhere in this theory of research does it say that rating people on goals is a source of motivation. Okay? That's not part of that. The field of neuroscience has been contributing to our understanding about how to lead and manage employees over about the last 5 years. So every 5 seconds, our brain is automatically computing whether or not we're in a threat or reward state. And unfortunately, the performance management process is filled with elements that create a threat state. And what happens then is that the creativity centers of our brain automatically turn off and shut down to new information in a protection state. David Rock has created a model to demonstrate or talk about how an individual responds to a performance conversation. So let me very quickly review the 5 elements of his SHRM model. When an individual gets a rating, their status may be threatened by that rating and how it compares to prior evaluations that they got. And since the one thing we know is that all employees believe that they are above average, a mathematical impossibility, we know that a majority of employees are going to be threatened by their actual rating. Change creates uncertainty. So any change in how we've been rated in the past will create a stress response. Bottling up feedback for the end of the year performance conversation creates a great deal of uncertainty in what's going to happen in that conversation. Our brain likes stability and control, and it likes to be in the driver's seat. In a performance review conversation, the manager's in the driver's seat, and that reduces an individual's level of autonomy and is a perceived threat. And we very quickly compute in our brain how much we're alike those people around us. And if we get a rating from a manager that we really like and it's less than stellar, it will threaten our perceived relationship or relatedness with that manager. And finally, we come to fairness. If we perceive any bias or favoritism in our performance rating, or if we don't feel that our effort is being adequately rewarded, then anything in that pay or performance conversation may be perceived as a threat. Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford University has introduced new research regarding 2 different mindsets and how they impact our work lives and how we approach our work, our lives and our work. And she refers to these 2 different mindsets as the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. She argues that many managers and some companies, like an Enron, they emphasize that fixed mindset. Employees are hired and compensated because they're stars. They have inherent brilliance or talent. And that talent is fixed. It doesn't change. So employees with a fixed mindset, they avoid challenges and obstacles because anything less than stellar performance may cause other people to question their initial assumption about your relative brilliance. These employees also do not exert a great deal of effort in trying to get to an outcome because they don't think that effort will change it. You either got it or you don't got it, and that's the mindset. Fixed mindset employees avoid criticism, and they are threatened by the success of other people. So these employees are unlikely to help their peers be successful. Now, in contrast, growth mindset employees, they embrace challenges and they work really hard when they're faced with obstacles because they see that as a path to personal growth. They seek out all types of feedback as a point of learning, and they want to grow and be their best. And they are energized by the success of other people. And they want to help other people be successful so that they can learn from their success. This research has huge implications for how we approach performance management and how we talk to our employees so that they develop a growth mindset. The McKinsey Global Institute has done some research and said that 2/3 of the value creation that comes from social technologies lie in their ability to improve communication and collaboration within the organization. And they estimate that companies that leverage social technologies can actually improve the productivity of knowledge workers by 20 to 25%. So tools like Yammer and Chatter, Work.com, and here 7Geese can help improve an organization's agility and collaboration by helping employees understand how we're all performing against common goals and providing us with information that we need to know when we need to shift and change. By leveraging these social technologies, organizations can create a more dynamic performance management process, and one that helps influence accountability to the team. And there is nothing like peer pressure to influence performance.
And says, come up on stage.
So,
you'll be
we need
muted.
a performance management process that is more relevant to a knowledge worker. And we need to move from managing performance to inspiring performance. So here are going to be the trends and the trend-setting companies that we're watching today that are demonstrating how companies are executing on some of these concepts. Companies like Gap and Adobe are reducing or eliminating documentation in the performance review process. Yeah, that sends shivers down the spines of most HR professionals and lawyers. But they're doing it for two main reasons. One, managers spend way too much time documenting performance and not enough time actually having a dialogue with their employees about their performance. And number two, often the documentation we have doesn't serve the legal action that we would like to take with an employee. Now, virtually all of these companies have eliminated ratings. And the reason companies are eliminating ratings are to put more emphasis on ongoing dialogue and to minimize any unintended consequences of rating a majority of your employees meets expectations. A rating that I will tell you does not give people the warm fuzzies, okay? The concept of looking forward and coaching for performance versus looking backward and evaluating performance is another significant shift that we're seeing. This places less emphasis on evaluation and more emphasis on providing employees with the skills and the information that they need to be successful. In a recent benchmarking study that I did, literally every company that I talked to said that they were looking to improve the coaching and development aspects of their performance management process because they saw that as a key to motivating and retaining top talent. This is also a trend that really supports that growth mindset. A number of projects that I've worked on recently we've looked at what is the difference in the actual payout to employees across the rating scale, and how much time does it take to get to that outcome. And it turns out that we spend an enormous amount of time for very little differentiation for a real impact on the employee, after taxes, after everything, very little real impact. So many companies are actually trying to simplify their rating process, and they're moving to a focus on rewarding exceptional talent and paying everybody else their fair market rate. This change has resulted in a move away from strict compensation guidelines to allowing managers to use their budgets as they see fit and providing managers with guidance on how to make effective compensation decisions. And then finally, we have companies like Hootsuite and Salesforce and Synaptics that have introduced social technologies to help create a more dynamic performance management process where employees can share their progress against common goals and where they can invite input from anyone at any time so that performance feedback occurs on more of a just-in-time basis. So when you go back to your offices, what I would like you to do is think about how well aligned is your performance management process with that business environment that you operate within. And then how might you leverage the research that I presented here to create a more contemporary approach to performance management? One that will drive performance in your company and motivate employees to be their best. Thank you.